All right, and our first question will go to Steve Lansdale.
Yeah, Tyson, your biggest game of the year offensively, 17 points. How are you feeling physically considering the limited minutes you've played? And then to follow that, all of your points came in the first half. Did Boise change the way they defended you in the second?
I felt really good to answer your first question. I felt really good. I was ready to play. And second half, I don't think they changed. I think they put a little guard on me. But I feel like our offense was flowing in different directions, and it started spreading out more. A lot of people started making more shots, and I just didn't get that involved in the second half.
Next question to Kevin Reynolds.
Hey, Tyson, I was just wondering if you could kind of talk about the emotional swings of this game and what you kind of saw in the final putback there with the and one for them.
Yeah, it was very back and forth. I felt like at one point we were having a shootout with them, and they wouldn't miss, we wouldn't miss, and then I just felt like at a point in time like we were just gonna blow the game open, but we couldn't get the big man stopped. And then that last shot, he did the little step back on me, shot it. I knew it was off, but I came in to crash late, and the ball got tipped, and it was like a real crazy play for an and one, but I don't know. It was a real emotional game. It was a real fun game. It was a game that I felt like we deserved to win, and I felt like some plays down the stretch didn't give us that opportunity.
Next up, Sam Blum.
Yeah, Tyson, I'm curious, just those first couple minutes, first 10 minutes, really, how would you kind of describe that, and what was kind of said? I think there may have been a timeout. You guys got back into it. What was kind of that first stretch like?
Oh, the first stretch, they was hitting everything. Like they was hitting fadeaways. They was hitting, so we kind of know like they couldn't last all night. But then it got to a point where I think I made a couple of shots. Will made some shots. I forgot a couple other people hit some shots towards the middle of that first half, and we were just like, man, we're gonna have a shootout with them. And then that's really where we left it, and we just started picking up the energy. I mean, we started getting a lot of defensive energy like from our bench, and started rebounding. We started running. We started getting transition points. So we started playing like the basketball that we used to play. And I feel like that's what got us into the game, got us back into the game. Like we just came together, and we knew we weren't gonna go out like that. We weren't gonna go out like just lay down for them.
Next question to Steve Lansdale.
Yeah, Tyson, Boise State hit 8 of its first 10 shots from 3 points. And from the outside looking in, it looked a little bit like Georgetown a couple of years ago. Was there ever any point where you sort of felt like no matter what you guys did, this wasn't going to be your night? And then how surprised were you that you were able to muster the comeback and at one point even take a lead late?
No, actually, we said that at halftime. We was like, bro, this game reminds us of the Georgetown game. But no, I didn't feel like they could make shots all night. I mean, I watched a couple games of them, and I looked at like our scouting report, and I looked at the numbers, the shooting numbers and percentages, and I didn't believe that they could hit shots the way they hit them all night. But I mean, they just kept going. They just kept hitting shots, kept making big plays, and then their big man started cleaning up for them. So then it was kind of difficult on us, because when their guards and wings, as big as they are, hitting shots the way they are, and they got a big bull in there like he is, rebounding, trying to clean up everything that they're shooting, and the ones that they're not making, he getting the rebound. It's kind of hard to guard it. It's kind of like you got to pick your poison, and we couldn't really get neither one contained for the whole. For a while, for a good stretch, so we could break it open.
Next question back to Sam Blum.
Yeah, Tyson, obviously the season's over now. I know that you're technically a senior, I believe, but I remember you kind of speaking earlier on in the year when you were weighing the decision of, wanting to play this year or not. thinking you had kind of a free year here. I mean, what's your plan now? Do you want to come back? Is that your intention?
And my plan right now, I got to go focus on this schoolwork. Me and Coach Jank and the coaching staff and my family and everybody, we're gonna have them conversations down the road. But I've been on a long journey to get here to the point where I'm so close to graduating, and I really don't even want to focus on like next year. As far as right now, I want to go make sure my schoolwork and everything is taken care of, and I'm on track and on the right pace to graduate. I'm really trying to. That's a celebration for me this year that I'm really looking forward to, me graduating, and I feel like everything's going to work itself out as far as my decisions, as far as coming back next year or pursuing something else. But as of right now, I'm just focusing on school, and then when me, Jank, and my family and everybody sit down and have that conversation, we'll figure something out.
All right, next question, Steve Lansdale.
Yeah, Tyson, this was your second game in a row where you had to come back from a big deficit. Did last week's game with Cincinnati serve as sort of a blueprint to know how you could do it tonight, or was it two entirely different approaches to close the gap and come back tonight?
I can't speak for everybody, but last week it was kind of difficult for me because I was limited, fresh off the COVID, so I only had 10 minutes. So I was just trying to make the best out of my 10 minutes, and I really felt like if I would have been out there a little more on the court last week, the outcome would have been different. And I feel like tonight, I mean, they played an unbelievable game. If they played just a normal game, we beat them. If they played, I feel like they played out of their mind, and I feel like even they feel like they played out of their mind with the shots they were making, just everything. I mean, we didn't even play a bad game, honestly. I feel like we played a really good, solid game, like one of the best games, funnest games that I've played in. And I just feel like they made shots. But last week, I feel like we were down on numbers. We hadn't played for a month and a half. Like, I only practiced one day before that game. I think Charles and JC only practiced 2 days before that game. So, I mean, we were all, like, trying to get back in the swing of things. So I feel like if we had a little more time for preparation last week could have went different. But today they just played out of their mind. You got to give them all the credit.
Back to Sam Blum.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going off your experience with COVID, I'm curious because I know that Jank and you just kind of described, not really having gotten a chance to play or practice more than, one day maybe. I mean, what was your experience like with COVID? And then just generally, this whole season I know has been obviously a challenging one for you in particular. How would you kind of just describe, the way that this whole year has been?
Man, this year has been I don't even got a word for it right now. It's just been so up and down, but I just knew, and our team just knew, and Jake's message to the team was just, we got to keep going. Like, this is just adversity. I mean, in basketball, you go through adversity. In life, you're going through adversity. And basketball teaches you how to go through adversity. And I mean, through the COVID, like we had a good stretch in the beginning of the season where I felt like we were gonna make it through the season. Like, I was watching all these other teams go on pause and everything, and I'm like, yeah, we're pretty good. Like, we had our doctors and everything had a good game plan to basically keep us safe. But then when it hit hard. And my I had COVID 2 times. I had it during the summer, and I just had it about a couple weeks ago. And neither time did I have symptoms. I felt fine the whole time. Most I had was like a headache, so I didn't really get the worst of it as some of my teammates did and coaches. But I felt like COVID really brought us together as a team because we all knew you can be here with us today and you can be gone the next. And I feel like that's what everybody was happy to see each other. And I feel like we became closer as a team. Like we became closer to our staff. Like, we had so many different people coaching, from all the way down from our coaching staff. We had so many people having to step up. Even on the court, we had so many people having to step up and get put out there and get put just through in the fire because that was the situation. And I feel like everybody as a team, as a collective unit, everybody stepped up to the plate and did what they could do and fought through it. And we made it here. Even though we didn't get the result we wanted, I feel like we fought all the way to the end. And I'm proud of the team. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of the coaches. I'm proud of the university for sticking with us and helping us fight through it.
All right, that was the last one. Thanks, Tyson. Thanks, everybody. We'll have Coach up here in just a minute.
Thank you.
And our first question will be for Steve Lansdale.
Tim, you always talk about how a team, yours or any other team, has to absorb the other team's best shot. And Boise came out tonight and hit 8 of its first 10 three-pointers. What do you tell your team on the sideline when they're throwing it in from every corner of the floor like that?
That they're going to miss, that they're not going to sustain that. Nobody ever sustains that kind of shooting. It was pretty incredibly impressive. I think you'd admit with me that was that was some really good shooting right there. And I thought we were playing hard. It wasn't like we were sleepwalking out there. They were just throwing balls in. But at the same time, we got off to such a slow start offensively that makes it even harder to continue your defensive intensity when you lose a little enthusiasm. So I was just incredibly. I'm incredibly proud of this group. Nothing more painful than losing big games, postseason games, championship level games. They stay with you forever. Nothing more painful. But with all the things, this is such a surreal and unreal year. And starting with the, February 8th, when that was the last game for 5 weeks and we played once, and we've had the revolving door of guys in and out for 40 days and 16 days and 20 days. And, then we go here and Ferran's hurt and Darius McNeil has pink eye this morning. And, it's unbelievable. And yet, with all the deck stacked so far against this group since February 8th, they've managed to keep working, to keep having a good attitude, to care deeply and to fight back from, again, this is a great team. This team is an NCAA team. They are possession away from being, certainly possession or two for being picked. We saw that all year. We were kind of a bubble team, throughout February, even though we weren't playing, we had played our way there. They were even maybe a couple spots above us. This is a great team. And to do what we did with the limitations we've had, that's why I'm so proud. And there's no way I can explain it, because you'd have to live it every day for the last 4 or 5 weeks. But that's why I'm hurting so bad for these guys, because they played so hard and did so many great things. And we're such a good team. They were teammates and they fought to win the game with one agenda and came back and took the lead. And really, the bounce, the rebound, so many times it comes down to just that one ball. Which way is it bounce? Is it bounce to you? Is it bounce to them? And they got it. And that was the key possession. But I just, I'm certainly happy with our effort. I thought we played amazingly well given our circumstances.
Up next, question Sam Blum.
Yeah, Tim, I wanted to ask just kind of about Will Douglas. He's obviously been with you guys for a while. From my perspective, I thought he played pretty well defensively, especially. What do you kind of see from him and just, what he kind of does for this team?
Well, yeah, today I think you'd be hard to argue. It's not certainly his best game of the year and one of the best games he's played here. And that's, give him even more credit because he did it in a national tournament championship elimination game. Those are the hardest ones to do it. And that's pressure. That's real pressure. And, we needed him to do it with some of the things that happened, what we're dealing with. And he really stepped up. He really did. And how about Tyson? Tyson, so that everybody's clear, Tyson had not practiced for, 15, 16 days. The day before the conference tournament game last Friday, literally the day before the game. He got to practice for 30 minutes. No joke, 30 minutes. So he played in that game. I mean, can you imagine how rusty you are? And then we've practiced how many ever times since, 4 or 5 times, which, trust me, you don't take 16 days off and then play 4 or 5 and get your postseason game back. And look at him. I mean, he just played fabulous. Yor had not played, I think, in 40 days without playing basketball. Yesterday, he got a half hour in, 30 minutes practice, and went out there and just busted his tail. Who knows if he could, his conditioning. I mean, but he just tried so hard. And then a lot of the other guys that have been practiced obviously played their tail off, fought back from an incredible blitz from Boise, and managed to take the lead. And then, like I say, my heart goes out because just, gosh darn it, sometimes a lucky bounce or unlucky bounce can decide the game. And that one did. If we could get that one rebound, maybe it's different. But I give them credit. They're a great team. They're an NCAA team. Every bit of it, could easily win NCAA games. They were considered in the tournament for the longest and just had a couple rough losses at the end, but they're a great team, really talented, as you could well see.
Back to Steve Lansdale.
Tim, there was a stretch in the second half where there were a lot of fouls being called on both teams. And considering the energy you spent last week trying to catch up against Cincinnati, and then the shorthanded or the limited practice time that so many of your guys have had, and with Ferran being out, did that parade to the foul line maybe help you guys because it gave you extra chances to grab your wind in the second half?
That's a good question. Usually fouls are not what you're hoping for, because when you do points per possession, fouls are really on the bad end of that. If the other team's going to free throw a lot, your defensive efficiency is not very darn good. But maybe you could make that case. What were they, 11 for 19? So that's not stellar. It wasn't by design. Both teams were playing extremely hard, extremely physical. And maybe it did. We were, of course, concerned. As hard as we were playing, oh my gosh, we were playing hard to start the game. But once we got that far down, whatever it was, 30-9, we took it up 2 gears. And now we're looking at 30 minutes of that. And given, the time off, I didn't know if we could sustain, because I knew we would have to sustain that intensity. We had to, or there's no way we're going to win. And truthfully, I didn't know 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes. There was a timeout. It was at the 4:45 minute mark. We were discussing whether we should take a timeout, knowing there was a TV timeout coming right behind and get a double rest. And right then, Boise called one. I think it was a 30, but still it was a 30-second. Then a couple possessions later, there was a dead ball. We got another TV timeout to try to finish down the stretch. I couldn't believe how far down our guys reached in their tank, really, because they just would not give in. They didn't want out of the game. They were not dragging. They didn't have their hands on their knees. They fought through it. They wanted it bad. And that's why I'm just, gosh darn it, I wish they would have been rewarded for their incredible effort and unselfishness tonight. And I wish they'd have been rewarded for just all that they've, all the stuff that we've been through since February 8th or whatever. That's why it's so painful.
Next question, Sam Blum.
Yeah, Tim, I'm curious, just how do you kind of look at the end of the season? I know after seasons, usually sit down, all coaches sit down, kind of evaluate. I mean, can you evaluate this given, everything like you said, it's the lack of practice, you didn't really know if you were a tournament team or not, all that. Do you kind of sit down and evaluate like that there's we might need to overhaul this part of the team or this aspect of what we do, or
great question. That's a great question, because usually that's an easy answer, because you've got all the information, right? You play a whole season and you got all the information you need. And this year, it's not really that way. It's not. It's we don't have all the information we need, but we certainly are going to sit down and have a lot of talks with our staff and with our players. And, you know, maybe, you know, of course, maybe we would have, had we not been paused, maybe we'd have played our way into the NCAA tournament. And of course, every guy on our team thinks they would, and we want to think that, but there's no guarantee of that. We know that you know, it has to happen. And what didn't happen, we didn't have a chance to have it happen. So we'll never know. Were we an NCAA team? Were we a second place team in our league? Because we kind of were threatening that with the games that were coming up. Were we not? Were we going to be a fourth place team anyway in an NIT bid? So it's a harder year to evaluate. It really is. But I do know this, that without question, that whether we were or whether we weren't, our goal is to get better again. I feel like we were better this year than last year. We want to be better next year than we were this year. And you know, honestly, I think that can happen. And certainly there'll be changes. You look at the country, I think there's going to be 2,000 transfers this year. I do. I think there's going to be. And I think part of it is this was so hard emotionally on players that I just don't think people can know what sacrifices players made and what a kind of a lonely year, and just not the fun, not the enjoyment. There's a lot of sacrifice and there's a lot of frustration. A lot of the players across the country are very frustrated. So there's going to be 1,800 transfers, you know, it's just going to happen. So there's going to be a lot of discussion on every staff about how do we get better, you know, what is our near future, long term. I tell you one thing, it's also very, very, very difficult to plan a long-term future. You're basically in this culture right now with all the transfers and maybe making it, you know, you can go play right away. I think it's going to be a year to year. You're not worried about a long term. There's no such thing, I think, coming. You're worried about forming a better team next year than you had last year and the year before that, and just continue on, which I think is going to be everybody's goal.
Up next is Damon Sales.
Hey, Tim, you talk about changes, and you've got a couple of guys who can make that transition and go to the next level, make some money playing professional basketball. It may not be the NBA, it might be the NBA, but the bottom line is they can go someplace. What do you tell those guys? You know, what kind of advice do you give those guys in situations like this? Or is it still a little bit too early just to have that discussion?
No, well, you know, we're not going to have it tonight. You know, we're going to wait a couple of days and heal emotionally. But that part's easy. You know, we always this is so easy for me. My stance is if a guy can make significant money for a long time, then I think it's worth looking at, you know, do you want to leave school before your time? If someone just wants to go make a little tiny bit of money and is threatened that that's only going to happen for a very short time, I don't recommend that. I think that's the biggest fool's gold in the world, you know, and there's a lot of people, I think, in their ears, go make money, go make it. It's not that easy to make a lot of money in basketball. It's really difficult to make it for many years. And so for me, I just want guys, I want them to go make a lot of money. I don't want them to ruin their life by thinking they are. And so that's always our stance. We're never, ever trying to hold someone back. I mean, look at Shimmy, look at, you know, Shake, both of them left early. And, you know, our message was the same. If you think you're going to get drafted at a certain level, you know, you got to go. But if you're not, then I think you're risking an awful lot. I don't understand, I will say, I don't understand someone wanting to play overseas for not a lot of money and pass up, say, getting the degree and maybe more importantly, improving their game so maybe that they could come out and get better contracts. I'm a big believer in that, but I'm not a coach trying to, you know, talk guys out of their future. The thing that I mean, really, the most rewarding thing in coaching in the long run, now that I've been in the long run, is watching your guys make a successful life after basketball. That's incredibly rewarding. So that's a pretty easy conversation for me. Not always do players listen to coaches because they have a lot of outside influence. They have agents that are very clever, maybe families, maybe friends, maybe, people that worked with them that have a lot at stake. So sometimes they think, like you're talking to them as if you don't have their end. You're just trying to get them to play another year, but that's not the case with us at all. I wish all our guys would go on and make a ton of money playing basketball. That would be the greatest thing in the world. Or go on and make, a very successful life, maybe not playing basketball, but something else. And I think that's kind of got lost in this day and age. Honestly, we live in the day and age of, hey, just, it's just about the games. I think it's the games and winning are incredibly important, but I do think that our job should be to try to also do the best we can to prepare our players to have a great life. And again, that's what gives me the most reward. And over now I've coached long enough that there's a whole bunch of guys that I know what they're doing and how they did. And I'm so proud, and it's so great to hear from them and watch what they do.
Our last question from Sam Blum.
Yeah, Tim, I know you referenced, a lot of those transfers. Obviously, Cincinnati, USF, and the conference of, those guys, like 6, 7 guys. You're not expecting some sort of exodus? I mean, what do you kind of think will? I mean, I know you haven't had these conversations yet, but do you anticipate having a lot of these guys back?
I don't think anyone expects it. This is a new day and age. You're talking about two things, unprecedented two things. So I don't think anyone can say they expect. I'm quite sure that Cincinnati did not expect it. I'm sure South Florida didn't, and you can go on and on. There's going to be 2,000 transfers. So, I don't even want to have an expectation. So you have two things. You have guys what is the emotional cost of this year of COVID? So people are not in the exact same place, trust me, that they usually are. None of us are, but the athletes aren't either. It wears on them. So what effect does that have on, I just want to go over here. I just want things to feel different. And then at the same time, it's pretty well known that there's probably a good chance that it's going to pass, that everyone could go play somewhere else right away, or at least if you haven't transferred before. And of course, it's very easy to feel like, hey, it's, wasn't perfect here, so I'm going to go over there. And I think there'll be 2,000. So I don't have an expectation. I do understand what's getting ready to have in college basketball, and you're going to need to compete whether you have a big turnover or a little turnover. It's going to be the reality. Like it or not, that's going to be what we're going to see in college basketball for X number of years to come, in my opinion.